Well, good morning, New Orleans, and welcome to Dattitude. This is episode number 130, January the 6th, 2023. It is King's Day, boys and girls. That means it's carnival season. Let's laissez le bon temps rouler.
King cake, baby.
Jeff Duncan in the house this morning, as he is every Friday here on Dattitude. I'm Jim Derry. And, Dunk, what is happening this morning?
Man, as soon as I get done with the pod, I'm going to get my first king cake of the Mardi Gras season. I'm fired up. I'm going to trek out to Dong Fung, way out.
So the lines are insane already.
Is it already? Oh, geez, I didn't realize that. Well, I'm going out there. I'm manning it because I cannot get enough of their king cakes. They're just incredible.
I just don't get Dong Fung. I mean, I'm not throwing anything into their. I don't want to say anything bad about it. I mean, they're good.
You just think they're overrated?
Way overrated. There are like 6 other king cakes I'd rather have.
Well, there are some darn good king cake. I have to say, that's since I've lived in New Orleans, I moved here in 99, the evolution and progress and advancement of king cakes has been off the charts. It's been one of the great developments. Everything else has gone down, the streets, education, crime, but we got the king cake thing down. We're making strides there.
Well, it's a lot different from when I was a kid. I mean, I think there were like 3 of them. So, I mean, you just, king cake was basically a powdered donut when I was a kid. And now it's like turned into all this gourmet. I mean, we don't need all this gourmet stuff. I mean, Jerry says.
That's where I differ from you. I don't like just the boring, bland, king cake. I like all the, creative things people do, including the cream cheese one, off the charts.
Oh, now I'm a huge. My wife doesn't like the cream cheese filled one. She likes the plain, but she loves Dong Fong and all the other ones. Me, give me a good cream cheese filled king cake. I'm all about that.
Yeah.
Uncle Big Nick's one. He's wondering if they had king cakes in the 20s. Well, the answer is yes to that. By the way,
I think it goes back a long way. Not that I would know. I don't think I was alive, even though I am old. I'm not that old.
I mean, that's ridiculous. By the way, anybody saw the Bayou Bet show yesterday? I was smart enough not to wear green today. Got blue on this morning, so you do not see the Dattitude backdrop on me this morning. I realized that you can't wear green when you got a green screen on behind you. That was quite the scene. Later on this afternoon. Later on this morning, we're not going to be on this afternoon, I promise you. When we get to our prediction segment, we're going to run a little piece about 2.5 minutes long. If you didn't see Bayou Bets, it was one of the best pieces of Bayou Bets. I mean, we had a Georgia TCU debate on Bayou Bets yesterday, Dunk. And I am so confident that I made probably what could be considered a dumb bet that could really make me look silly or have me looking like a genius and having someone else look silly next Thursday. So we'll find out. I'm going to keep it a secret. They're going to have to watch. They're going to have to watch to the end. We made a little bet on the Bayou Bet show. And so when we get to our predictions, I got a feeling you're going to be on the same side as me, but we'll see about all that. Predictions, that's coming up towards the end. Taz says that was a great talk. Taz, by the way, I know you were on my side with some of this stuff. I was watching your comments. I know they never showed them, I don't think, but I was definitely on your side with that. Jerry is here this morning. He says he does traditional or lemon filled. I mean, whatever you vote. Yeah. I don't get the whole Dong Fong thing, but it's not terrible. My wife loves it. She thinks it's the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, no, I love them.
But
I think it comes down, and for me, a lot of it comes down to the consistency of like the bread. Like is it light? I like it light.
That I agree with.
I don't like that thick cardboard kind of bread. Like it gets heavy, and too often you get that. But look, I'm willing to try. I'm going to a king cake party tonight, a 12th night party, where I'm going to get to sample dozens. So I'm gonna have to run a few extra miles before I go down there tonight.
We got the Endymion Coronation Ball tomorrow night, so I'm trying to keep myself even keeled and
till then.
Yeah, well, we'll see how that goes. But look, who knows? We may sprinkle in some king cake talk as we go along. But I want to talk about football, and of course, we got Panthers Saints on Sunday. We're going to get to that in just a minute. But great news this morning, Dunk. Damar Hamlin is breathing completely on his own So that is just excellent news. I mean, look, I don't know how we haven't talked since then, but I don't know how you felt about it. But man, it was scary stuff. And for me, all I could think of as a parent, if that were my kid lying there, I don't know how they went through it. I can only imagine what his parents were going through. And thank God that it looks like he's gonna pull through this thing. And it's amazing how much he has improved in a few days.
Yeah, I tell you, it's a credit to the medical professionals that were on the scene, the expediency with which they administered care to him. I mean, this would not have happened if they wouldn't have gotten out there. And, the NFL takes a lot of grief for a lot of things, and rightfully so. But in this instance, with 20 medical specialists on the field at every NFL game, you see how much it does matter to the league. That makes sure that things like this, if they do happen, they get the proper medical care. And I think because he's young and in incredible shape, and because they got to him so quickly and got his pulse back, got blood circulating into his brain and his body, this is almost like a miracle come true. We'll see how he goes. I mean, I don't think he's out of the woods by any means, but incredible progress in the last 48 hours.
No question about that, and it is just it's thrilling to see him doing so much better. Jim Derry, Jeff Duncan here on the Live Dattitude podcast we do every Friday at 9:15. We're talking about football, and hey, what else are we going to talk about this time of year? It's getting important. We welcome your questions and comments. We'll be on until at least 10 a.m. Who knows? We may go a few minutes longer. We're going to talk mostly about the Saints, but we're also going to talk about Georgia and TCU a little bit later. And we're about to talk about, before we get to Saints Panthers, we're going to talk about the NFL playoffs and the situation. Not just this weekend. It's obviously a big weekend. Maybe not quite what the NFL envisioned going into Week 18. I think they thought they would have more games that meant a little bit something more. I know they had a tough time picking which one they're going to pull out for prime time. I think they picked the right one, Packers and Lions. First of all, the Lions, to me, deserve to be on primetime a little bit more. They didn't even have – the only Thursday game they even had was the Thanksgiving game. So they weren't even on Thursday Night Football. So good to see the Lions on primetime. And what is your take, first of all, before we get to the playoffs, what is your take on Week 18 and some of the games that you're going to be looking forward to?
Well, the Lions are my pick of the week. I love them in this game. The fighting Dan Campbells. I mean, I would not underestimate.
Even if the Seahawks win.
Yeah, that's going to be the one qualifier, but I still think the Lions and Dan Campbell. I mean, what I think of most, JD, is he's a disciple of Sean Payton and Bill Parcells, and those guys are wired the same way, man. They thrive in these kind of games. I mean, they love when everyone's against them and they think you can't win. I mean, it's like meat to them. And I think Dan Campbell's wired the same way. Matter of fact, I know he is. So he's going to have his team ready to play. I think they would love nothing better on that stage than to beat the Packers. And they beat them handily earlier this year. Now, the Packers are playing much better. They're playing really good defense. They're running the ball. They're doing everything they need to do to be competitive right now and win these games. So it won't be easy in Lambeau. I think I looked up the stats yesterday. It was mind-boggling. Green Bay's record against the Lions, at least in the last 30 years, I think they've only lost 3 games. They're 28-3 against the Lions, and one of those was one of those Week 17
right
games,
when it didn't matter.
Rested their starters. So historically, it's not been good for the Lions. But again, that goes back to what I'm saying. These are the kind of things that I guarantee Dan Campbell's telling his team. And I think if nothing else, they cover the 4.5. But I think they can win the game outright.
Well, if you go back and look, I don't know if you were looking at scores when you were looking at these things, but actually a lot of them, especially lately, have been close.
Yes.
The Lions have given the Packers all they can handle as of late and have given them some scares. Even when there were a couple of Week 18s that the Packers had to win, and the Lions gave them a scare. So I agree with you. I think that is going to be a tight game. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. If Jared Goff can do anything, he's got plenty of offensive weapons. I think when you look at what the Packers have done over the past few weeks, great run. It's kind of like the Saints in a way. But, I mean, let's be honest. They haven't necessarily beaten world beaters.
Right.
Even beating the Dolphins on the road when they probably should have lost. They were losing that game until Tua got hit in the head. Yep. So, I mean, I don't think Green Bay is as good as everybody thinks they are. And we're going to find out real soon. So that's the one I'm looking to as well. I'm also looking to see, I thought the Seahawks have been a mirage all season. I think that is a game that would scare the bejesus out of me if I were a Seahawks fan, because that's no given. I mean, the Rams are playing much better right now. The Seahawks can't stop the run, and all of a sudden Cam Akers has figured out how to run the football. I know he was banged up, but he was also in the doghouse for a lot of the season. And now he's running with authority, and I think the Rams are playing really well. Baker Mayfield I can't believe I'm saying this, but is making a name for himself. He's earning himself a job, I think, somewhere for next year.
Well, I think, it's a good example of, like, if you get into a good offensive system with a really good head coach that plays to your strengths, that's what coaching's all about. And I don't think Baker Mayfield's – he's talented. I mean, he's number one pick in the draft. So I think obviously, system matters, fit matters. And I feel like Baker Mayfield, if he played for Sean Payton, he'd be productive too. Those kind of coaches can get the best out of their quarterbacks. They're not going to transcend them and make them Justin Herbert or something like that,
right.
But they can certainly make them productive, quality, starting quarterbacks in the league. We see it with Andy Dalton here in New Orleans, what they've done. I mean, he's played very well compared to his last few years in the NFL. He certainly played better here, I think, than he's played before. And he's probably earned himself a little bit of money the way he's played this year.
There's no doubt about it. And Uncle Big Nick says he can't wait to talk about Seattle and his best bets. He's coming on. If you're watching the show, the entire Dattitude podcast will come out wherever you catch your podcast, all over the great platforms. The audio version, I add my monologue, and Uncle Big Nick comes on after Mr. Duncan, and we offer our best bets of the week. And I got to say, we both have our head above water. My head's way above water. Like I'm like riding planes and stuff, and Uncle Big Nick's just kind of floating, popping his head up. But that's okay. We're both winning you money. So that if you want to catch that, you can find Dattitude about 11:30 or noon, wherever you find your podcast. And
hey, who do you like in Jacksonville, Tennessee?
Oh man, it's funny you asked that, because that's the next game I was going to talk about. I went to my analysis. I spent an entire day before, as I do my NFL picks column, going through each game, trying to pick out little nuggets, trends. And I went in, there are usually about 2 or 3 games a week going in. I think I'm going to pick this going in. And then when I do the trends and analysis, I change my mind. That's one of the ones I changed my mind on. I've been wrong on Jacksonville all year long. So I went in thinking I'm going to pick Jacksonville here. I changed my mind. I think that Tennessee is going to win the game, and I'm going to tell you why. A couple reasons. First off, and the number one reason I'm going to give first, Mike Vrabel. I think he's been kind of like lying in the weeds with this team. I think he's been.
That's one.
Don't get me wrong; they're not losing on purpose.
They're losing every game.
And look, I don't want it to sound too silly. They're not losing on purpose, but they had no reason to win at all against Dallas, and so anyone that was kind of banged up or nicked up, they didn't play in that game against Dallas. So now they have essentially had 2 weeks off. They're coming off of a long week anyway because they played on Thursday night. And so they get to play on Saturday. Meanwhile, Jacksonville, I'm not sure why they played all their starters last week, but they did. They went out and they wanted to win and make a statement. That's fine. That was what Doug Peterson wanted to do. But I think it's going to matter this week. I think Tennessee is going to win this game.
I think that's a smart play. I do. Look,
I think they're going to win outright.
Josh Dobbs was impressive.
He was.
I mean, he played well. I've always wondered why he wasn't given more of like a better shot. I've always been impressed when he's played. He
played with moxie.
Yeah, he reminds me a little of like Geno Smith or somebody.
Yeah, a little bit.
Never got the opportunity. I'm not saying he's going to be great, but he's better when I've watched him than his career is kind of played out.
Well, he never really got a chance. I mean, he was a good quarterback at Tennessee, I thought.
Played with Alvin Kamara.
Yes, he did. And look, I think also, Dunk, I think you're going to see a big mix. They're not talking about it, but I think you're going to see a lot of Malik Willis playing a Taysom Hill type role in this game.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to have a lot of new wrinkles. I just think that Mike Vrabel is such a great coach. I just can't see him finishing out on the losing streak that they've been finishing out on. And I just don't think Jacksonville is that good. I know they've had some good wins in there, but man, I don't think they're that good.
What's the line on that game?
6. So I would definitely take Tennessee with the spread, but I think you can value in the money line. I think the money line was plus 210, which means that if you bet, let's say you bet $10. If you bet $10 and at 210, it would mean you would win $21 back on your return if you bet just on the money line, Tennessee to win. Or you can bet $11 to win 10 and take the 6 points, whatever way you want to do. But those are the games that I'm looking out for this week. I think they're going to be fun. I think it's actually going to be a pretty fun weekend of football. I really like what the NFL has done now, and kind of, there's a Saturday element. It's almost like an extra playoff weekend. I think they've done a really good job with that, and I'm looking forward to it. We'll see how it goes. Real quick before we get to Panthers Saints, because we already have a question about the Saints. We're going to get to it in a minute. William Lopez, we'll get to your question in just a minute. If you want to leave any comments or questions, we are going to talk about the Saints in just a moment. But we have a weird situation going into next week and throughout the playoffs, especially in the AFC now, Dunk, with, the fact that they had to cancel the Bills-Bengals game. It's going to probably mean that the Chiefs are the number 1 seed, even though they lost to both the Bills and the Bengals, and would not be the number 1 seed in all likelihood had they not canceled that game. So now they're talking about if the AFC Championship game is played and it involves Chiefs-Titans or Chiefs-Bengals, they're going to play it on a neutral site. An interesting situation.
Yeah, look, I think they're just trying to make the best of a bad situation. I mean, there's really no perfect solution to it. I think they could have solved this in a better way if the game that got canceled would have happened earlier in the season. They had a little more flexibility to make it up.
Right.
But there's just no way at this late juncture to do it. I think they did the right thing in just canceling the game altogether. And you're going to have a little inequity in the number of games that some of the contenders have played, but that's just the way it is. And the night that the incident happened with Hamlin, I was wondering in the back of my mind, like, what are they going to do? Because I know, like, logistically, just how difficult it is to schedule games. I mean, this NFL schedule has been in place for, months, and, cities are involved. There's planning. I mean, just talking to, say, like Doug Thornton at the Superdome of what is involved in hosting a game and the travel and all this stuff. It's not easy to move games. I mean, they probably did the best they could in this situation, because moving the whole playoffs back 1 week, it was doable, but we're talking about now you're affecting multiple cities, more than several cities. Whereas in this situation, you're really only dealing with a couple. And, I think they'll probably try and find a neutral site if it comes to that, somewhere up in the Midwest or Northeast that makes it.
I'm hearing Indianapolis is the most logical.
Yeah, Indy makes a lot of sense.
Maybe Detroit.
You wouldn't have to worry about weather there. Something like that to where the fans can get to the game. And but it's unprecedented situation. And I thought the statement the NFL put out was spot on. In other words, they admitted it's not a perfect solution,
right,
but it's the best to mitigate the inequities for everyone involved. It's the least onerous situation.
Take that, all you Goodell haters. These stinking Goodell haters. Goodell hates my Saints. He hates my Saints.
You should read Dan Graziano's Twitter timeline. If you get done today, read it. I love Dan, and he's in the middle of that. Just people just going crazy. And finally, he got so exasperated. He's like, people were going to get mad if they didn't do anything, and now they're mad they did something.
Exactly.
Everybody just needs to stop being mad.
Yeah, you know what's interesting when it comes to situation, they would have done. Put yourself back on Monday night, exactly that moment. I know there are a couple people who say, "Oh, I said this from the beginning." Okay, but if I go back and think about, what I was thinking about I'm thinking there is no way they can finish this game. I don't care what it does to the rest of the season. When it happened, after the 20 minutes of what the heck is going on with this kid laying on the field, as I started thinking about the game, like, there's no way they can play this game, and there's no way they can make it up. So,
yeah,
I mean, they
I
did the
wasn't
right
sure
thing.
what they were going to do, but it's easy to sit and criticize. But like one thing I've known about Roger Goodell is he doesn't make a decision until he has to make a decision. So in a situation like that, he's going to involve all parties. And that takes a little while, right? He's got to talk to the head of the NFL Players Association.
That's right.
He's got to talk to his VP, Donna Ponte, who was on the ground there, who was there with the coaches. There's a lot of people he has to talk to before he makes that decision. So it's easy to sit there while we're watching and say, they can't play the game. But, I mean, he's got to look at it through a bigger prism. And I thought all that mattered in that situation was they arrived at the right decision. The timing, I didn't think that was that big a deal.
All right, Jerry, who is one of our regulars, and he's like his hate on Roger Goodell too. I appreciate you, but all the people, everyone out there, I'm probably going to lose viewers or listeners when I say this, because I like to say this every now and then just to remind people. All of you people who say Roger Goodell hates the Saints, guess what they say in Carolina? Roger Goodell hates the Panthers. Guess what they say in Atlanta? Roger Goodell hates the Falcons. I guarantee you in Boston they say Roger Goodell hates the Patriots.
No question. And they're saying it now in Cincinnati because they're the ones that are really coming up short. I mean, that's
while Joe Burrow's coming out, by the way, and saying, look, we understand completely. They got to do what they got to do. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it's not a good situation. I think they actually came up with a pretty creative solution. They're playing on neutral field. I don't know how you can complain about that unless, you were. But I did have fun this morning, JD, just thinking as I was seeing the solution. I thought, man, if this would involve the Saints,
oh God,
you imagine the aggrieved parties.
Oh, God, no.
We'd have second line parades.
Oh my God, there'd be people with signs walking around the dome.
Torches. There'd be people marching with torches.
F. Roger Goodell. F. Roger Goodell.
They hate the Saints.
The NFL hates the Saints. No, they don't. They don't care. They love New Orleans. I promise you. All right, moving on. Panthers at Saints on Sunday. Oh my goodness. I don't even know where to start here. We got a question, so I guess I'll start with that. The game itself is meaningless. So we're going to get to our predictions on the game. But in the grand scheme of things, this is the first time since 2016. It is 2016 season anyway. It was the first time in 6 years the Saints are playing a final game that has absolutely no meaning whatsoever. It is really weird, to be honest. It shows you how spoiled we all are. William Lopez asked, Dunk, what are your predictions on the direction the Saints go at quarterback in 2023?
Yeah, that's to me the number one question that Mickey Loomis and Dennis Allen have to answer. I think they will definitely try to bring back Andy Dalton in some role. Now, what that role is going to be, I don't know, but I think
hold on. I got to brace myself. Okay, go ahead.
I'm telling you, Dennis Allen loves Andy Dalton. He said it this week how well he thinks he's played this year. And I don't disagree with that. He has done what they've wanted there and mitigated some of the issues that Jameis Winston had with turnovers and inconsistency. He's been consistent, if nothing else, since that Cardinals game. He's kind of done what they've expected, and they've been able to win some games in the second half here. But I definitely think they're going to try to upgrade. And how they do that, I don't know. I think they've got to get very creative with the salary cap. And that might involve looking at trading a key player like a Mike Thomas or somebody. I'm not saying they're going to trade Mike Thomas, but it could involve something like that. I just think they've got to be creative to try and get some assets because they're not going to get up in the top of the draft right now.
Who's going to trade for Michael Thomas?
I don't know. Somebody might. Look, I could see Bill Belichick saying, we get him in our building. Well, he fit in well with the Patriots, actually. They need a number one receiver.
I don't mean it like that. I do think that Michael Thomas is not at the end of his career. I think he's going to be serviceable, whether it be in New Orleans or somewhere else. My point is, who's going to take him in that contract? How much of that money would the Saints have to eat? Because right now, I mean, don't take this the wrong way if you're a Michael Thomas lover or if you're Michael Thomas's parents, for that matter. But if someone would take Michael Thomas off the Saints' hands, You give me a bag of circus peanuts, and I do cartwheels in the front lawn.
Well, here's the deal. It would save them money, actually, a little bit, like $3 million if they moved him, if they traded him or released him. Now, that's within the context of it still would be a cap hit of $25 million, but on the books next year, it's $28 million with him playing. But you get the value of having him on the roster and playing. So the $3 million really isn't that great. But I'm just saying they've got to get creative somehow to get draft capital if they want to try and get a quarterback in the draft. They're not going to get Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud.
Of course not.
They're going in the top 5. So, is there somebody they would like that might be developmental? I'm just throwing a name out, like Max Duggan or somebody.
That's the first name that came to my mind.
Yeah. Do you draft him in the 3rd round and then bring back Dalton and sort of do what the Falcons did this year with Mariota, and you have him starting, or Trubisky and Pickett, and you start out with the veteran, then maybe you see if he comes along and you can move into. That's the only thing I can think of. I personally would have drafted Kenny Pickett last year. I've told you that before.
You and I are on the same point.
Going to be good, 100%. And he's proving it. He's starting to turn games around. They're winning games, and he's going to be good in the future. And if you were a Saints fan, I think you'd feel a heck of a lot better about the future if you had him on the roster at that cheap number, considering the Saints' salary cap. They have the worst salary cap situation of anybody in the league. It's not even close. I mean, no one's really even close to them. It's so bad. So they're going to have to figure out some solutions, and that might involve purging the roster. Now, the positive side of this, JD, and I wrote about it this week, is a bunch of young players on the roster have emerged. We're talking about – we all know about Chris Olave, but you got guys like, Rashid Shaheed, Caden Ellis, Carl Granderson. They're not very expensive right now. Now, some of them they're going to have to re-sign at a more significant salary, but they're still not going to be, huge contracts.
Right.
So they've had some positive developments. Alontae Taylor at corner is, on a rookie contract. So that's been a positive development. Juwan Johnson is emerged at tight end. So these young players that have emerged into these key roles allow you to maybe move on from some of the veteran players. Let's face it, Jameis Winston's not going to be back. That saves $4 million.
But they still have to eat. They're still going to need $10 million of that.
Right. They're eating money, but they're still saving money. If you keep him, it's $4 million more expensive. Now, the other option is keep him and extend him and lower the number next year. But that's what they've been doing. That's exactly how they got to this point. They had the highest.
Yeah, they need to stop doing that.
Their restructuring is killing them right now. And look, I know why they did it during the Drew Brees era. I don't know why they're doing it now. They misjudged that. They thought they were going to be one of the better teams in the NFC, so they went all in, and it kind of blew up on them.
Here is my problem, and here's my thinking. I don't care whether they win or lose Sunday. It makes no difference to me whether you're 8-9, 7-10, or 4-13. This team is in the same boat it was 4 weeks ago. I know people don't. They win 4 games in a row, and not just our everyday Joes. I mean, I got media people that I talk to and shows that I've been on, and people tell me I'm ridiculous. And Doug Mouton and I had this long debate the other day of how wrong I am about you're putting lipstick on a pig by winning 4 games in a row. They're in the same boat that they were. This team, this might be the worst thing that happens to this team if they finish Sunday with a win and finish 8-9. 8-9 is not that much worse than 9-8. This team is in so much worse of a position going into this offseason than they were last year at this time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
You can't fake just because they go 8-9. I hope the administration doesn't think any differently going into the offseason than they would have thought had they been 4-13. I know people don't want to hear this, and they don't want to go through it. But this team needs to get blown up from the floor and start over. And you talk about the cap situation. That, to me, is the number one problem for this team. And the only way to fix it is stop kicking the can down the road. Take that can, open it up, scrape out what's in there, and start over. And this team has to start over. And it's why Andy Dalton is the wrong answer. And I don't care what rookie quarterback you get in here next year. And I'm going to give you a name. I think Stetson Bennett, to me, is the wow. I think he is I'm not saying he's going to be Drew Brees, but I think he is the Drew Breesian. Like, if you watch him play, the way his stature is, the way he handles himself in pressure situations, to me, he's the closest thing there is to Drew Brees. And I think he would fit this franchise mold, and he can probably be gotten for a 6th-round draft pick.
Well, I don't know what he translates to the NFL. I mean, I would say that Bryce Young's
right.
Good Drew Brees.
Well, I'm talking about realistic possibilities for the same. But I agree. Bryce Young's would be fantastic.
Hendon Hooker from Tennessee.
The problem with Hendon Hooker is you're talking about a guy that's going to be 25 years old next year and coming off of an ACL injury. So by the time he would get himself NFL ready, you're talking about somebody that's going to be 27, 28. I don't
know about that.
I'm not super opposed to Hendon Hooker. I'm just worried that someone that age, and I'm not sure that one great season I don't know. I'm not super opposed to Hendon Hooker. I'll just say that.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure.
Got the leadership qualities. Yeah, I mean, here's the way I look at when I start hearing people talk about age. Sometimes, and I don't want to dismiss that, but Drew Brees was what when he got to the Saints? You know what I mean? Like
25, I think.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Was he 25?
25 or 26, something like that.
Point is, it turned out okay. They weren't. You would look at him.
You know what? No, I'm sorry. I take it back. He was born in 78, so when he got here in his first season of 06, he would have been 28.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So, like, it just you get if you like all the characteristics and qualities, and you think he can be the guy, you take him. But I'm not saying he is. I'm just throwing guys out that might be available because of that injury. It actually might help the Saints acquire him. But I still think if they go for a rookie in the draft, they're still going to look at bringing back a Dalton to be their, transition guy. They know what they have with him. He fits in well here, but he's not going to come back for $3 million a year. I mean, it's going to be way more than that. So I don't know how much they can afford given their problems at the other positions they've got. I mean, what do they do with Cam Jordan? I mean, Cam Jordan's coming off 3-sack game. He's been their best defensive lineman this year. And, he would be a cap casualty that they actually could save a lot of money on. But do you want to cut that guy? I don't know what you do.
I don't know. He's a guy that has earned the right to decide when he wants to leave or go, in my opinion. Kind of like Drew Brees. I think the Saints would have been so much better off had Drew Brees left at least 1 year, probably 2 years before he left. I think the Saints would have been better off. But that being said, Drew Brees had earned the right to leave when he wanted to leave. And I think Cam Jordan's one of those rare players, in my opinion, is in the same boat. He's earned the right to leave whenever he wants to leave. And I don't know when that's going to be.
No, I don't think he's going there. But there's players like that. Andres Pete, I think, is a guy that if you moved off him, which wouldn't surprise me, you'd save some money there. But then where do you go at guard? I mean, they don't really have a plug-in.
The O-line's kind of a mess for the first time in a long time, I think.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think your tackle situation's great because you got Penning. Maybe you move James Hurst into guard.
Maybe
you start Penning at left tackle. That could be a solution if they moved on from Andres Pete. They got to get creative, and I know these are conversations they've already had, and they're certainly going to intensify here in the next few weeks.
It doesn't worry you that Ryan Ramczyk is maybe getting a little longer in the tooth, and I know he's not that old, but the fact that and I know he had his injuries, but man, when he was healthy, or at least quote unquote healthy, his play slacked off this year.
Yeah, it definitely. Look, I think his injuries are something he's going to be dealing with the rest of his career. He still plays at a high level, but it's not the dominant level we saw there when he was making all pro teams. But he's still a quality starter. I think the offensive line needs to be addressed, though. I mean, because they need to figure out the moving parts there. You saw some improvement from Ruiz this year. McCoy's very solid.
Yeah.
And you got a lot of hope for the potential of Penning at left tackle. I mean, I love watching that guy play. I mean, he's a mauler out there. He brings an attitude that I think the Saints need. And, look, going back watching the replay of that Eagles game, it was evident early on what the Saints' game plan was. And I don't want to take anything away from the Saints because they won that game fair and square, but the Eagles didn't come to play. I mean, you don't line up at the 19-yard line in an NFL game and just run 4 straight times right up the middle and score a touchdown. Doesn't happen. Not on the opening drive of the game. That's an indication you didn't bring it.
They're beat up.
Yeah, they tried to wake up too late, and they paid the price with that late pick 6 by Lattimore, which was a great play. But
let me tell you about the Eagles. The Eagles are in a world of hurt. They've got some key injuries, especially Lane Johnson being hurt across the offensive line. Jalen Hurts is not going to be 100% in the playoffs. They're not going to be able to use him the way that they normally use him. I'm going to make a bold prediction. The Philadelphia Eagles are going to get the bye, and they're going to be one and done. They're going to lose in the first round.
Early. I totally agree with it. I'm not convinced that they might win against the Giants because the Giants,
I think they will.
They're locked into their seed.
Right.
But I would be very hesitant to lay whatever they're laying, like
14.
14. I would be very hesitant because I didn't like what I saw from the Eagles.
And the Giants, people don't realize how much down here. I know they think of big rivalry, Saints-Falcons. But multiply that by 10, and you got Eagles and Giants.
Yeah.
They hate each other.
No,
I mean, they can't stand each other. So the Giants aren't going to lay down to the Eagles. I promise you that.
No, they won't. Even if they have nothing to gain in that game, but they're still gonna bring it. I guarantee you. So that's a game I wouldn't touch probably. But I'm with you on the Eagles. I don't think they're going to represent the NFC in the Super Bowl.
No, I think I wouldn't touch them with a stick. You cannot bet on the Eagles right now. Jerry says, happy birthday to Jameis Winston. Well, shout out to Jameis Winston.
Yes.
I just lost about another 4 viewers. That's okay. We'll be all right.
JD, hold down the fort here while I plug in. I'm going to lose you. So
all right, yeah, go ahead. Well, let's move on because I do want to talk about Saints-Panthers matchup on its own here. And you look at the Saints, a 3.5-point favorite as of late last night. I did this slide, but it was teetering on the brink of going to 3. So if you want to bet on the Saints, you might want to wait because I think that is going to drop to at least 3. Carolina Panthers plus 158 on the money line. If you think the Saints are going to lose this week, and we're going to get to our predictions later on, but this is an interesting matchup for the Saints. I would say that. Plus 158, a total of 42. Saints have had a lot of unders as of late. Maybe that's a better bet. Total of 42. I think we could easily see a 20-17 like score going into the weekend. And the Saints money line at minus 190. So if you want to bet on the Saints just to win, then you're talking about you got to bet $190 to win 100. So you're looking at those numbers, and it's an interesting matchup, Dunk. While you were switching out there, one thing, this Saints line at minus 3.5, it's going to drop to 3. The Sharps are pounding Carolina right now. They are definitely the ones that are getting bet more because this line is actually even money to bet the minus 3.5. That hook is going to go bye-bye before Sunday. It'll be minus 3 by Sunday.
Yeah, I think I would play that down to 3 if I were taking the Saints, just to get that extra hook off. I think the Saints could win this game by field goal, and you'd feel comfortable with that. But I definitely don't like that 3.5.
Yeah, I'm not a fan. I don't bet 3.5s anyway. I got to feel super, super strongly to bet a minus 3.5 anytime, no matter who's playing.
Yeah.
But we'll get to our predictions in a minute. But I do want to keep going with the matchup itself. And we like to show this graphic every week. Last time we'll be able to show it. And the matchups themselves and who the Saints have, what their ranks are. By this point, the ranks are what they are. But I think there's one thing that's a little bit deceiving, and that's Carolina's rushing offense has improved, to me, Dunk, so much. And it's weird to say because they've done it without Christian McCaffrey, but their rushing offense, even though it's 12th in the league, they have been outstanding running the football since Steve Wilkes has taken over as coach.
Yeah, they're still playing hard. I mean, they didn't play all that well against the Bucs last week, but they're playing hard for Wilkes. And the Saints are going to have to bring it to win this game. There's no doubt about it. Carolina's they've had a lot of pride in the second half of the season, the way they played. I think the Saints win the game. We'll get to our predictions later, but I don't think it's going to be easy. And I worry a little bit about the timing. The Saints have won 3 in a row. They're feeling good about themselves. They just had this big emotional win in Philly. Can you get back up for a game like this? Football's a sport of emotion and effort. Can you do it in this type of environment when it's probably going to be, 3/4 full dome maybe? I don't know what's going to be like.
We have some other things to talk about, so we can get into our predictions now if you want. because I want to move on to talk about the national championship game for a moment, and I do want to touch on the Pels before we go off the air. As a matter of fact, one of my overlays is going here, and I'll go find it as we talk. But I will say this: I think that look, this is the bowl of whoever wins this game goes over their preseason total and is going to win some people some money, and it's also going to lose some people money because the Saints over/under win total way back in the spring was 7.5, and I jumped all over it. I know you were in the same boat. How did the Saints possibly not win more than 7.5 games? I thought it was a fait accompli, a done deal, easiest bet in the book. Boy, were we wrong. There was nothing easy about it. And now they put themselves back in a position. The Panthers, kind of the same thing. They're over under 6.5. So somebody's going to go over that win total, barring a tie. And who you think it's going to be the Saints, right?
Yeah, I like the Saints. I just like the way they're finishing the season. I think they figured out the formula. I don't know why it took them so long to figure it out, but they have figured it out. I think we've talked about this before. I remember having a conversation with Dennis in training camp, and I remember distinctly after we got done with the formal interview, we just started talking, and the thing he said to me was basically we have to be comfortable as a team winning 20-17, 17-13 games. They're going to be tight games this year, and we need to be comfortable winning these low-scoring defensive battles. He knew what kind of team he expected to have, and that's exactly what they've been these last few weeks, right? Even the 49ers game was that kind of game. They lost it. They didn't score, but defensively they were in the game. The Bucs-Saints game that they lost was another game in the teens. And it's just funny because back then I remember distinctly, Jim, everyone was caught up in the clouds of Chris Olave, Jarvis Landry, Mike Thomas, and people were thinking this was going to be the old Drew Brees, high-flying offense. And I was like, it ain't going to be this way. I'm telling you. It's
you did say that. More
like Jim Mora and the Dome Patrol. And that's what this team's figured out. I don't know what happened the first half of the season. I don't buy into the excuse a little bit. And I heard DA say it the other day. They had new coaches and new roles. I mean, every team in the league has coaching changes, and every team in the league has roster changes. It shouldn't have taken this team with this kind of talent as long as it did defensively to figure it out. I mean, the offense I get. Defense, everyone was intact. Everyone except for the two safeties. And this was like they started over again, and they have most of the same coaches. So that to me was the most disappointing part of the season was the defensive side of the ball spending half the season kind of spinning its wheels.
I think you're going to see a lot of changes next year. Well, maybe not a lot, but you see, and people saying, "Oh, this saved DA's job." We talked about this weeks ago when they were 4-9. It did. Winning these last 4 games didn't save Dennis Allen's job. It may have saved a couple of assistants' jobs, but it did not save Dennis Allen's job. He was going to be the coach of this team next year, unless they had gone like 4-13, fallen on their face, and just been non-competitive. Now, I will say, I can't say that it doesn't matter at all that they're winning. The fact that they've shown heart and stood up and they're playing for their coach does say something. So that is encouraging if you're a Saints fan, because they definitely could have fallen flat on their face. So it does mean something, and I want it to sound that way. But there's still tons of changes to be made on this team. And as far as this weekend's game, here are my thoughts. I think the Saints are going to lose this game, and I think they're going to lose it in heartbreaking fashion because it's frankly, I think the Panthers are a better football team. I really do. But secondly, beyond that, this season just karmically just deserves to end in misery, right? I mean, you can't have a feel-good end to the season. They don't deserve it. And the people who bet on the Saints like me, they don't deserve to cash that over ticket. We just don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. If they win this game and Caesars puts the money in my account, I'm not going to be like saying, here, no, take it back. But we don't deserve to cash the ticket. It was too easy to begin with, and anything that's too good to be true, not usually is, always is. And Dunk, you do this every year where you poll X amount of media members. I think you had 27 this year.
Yep.
The other way, you polled 27 media members, and all 27 said the Saints were winning 9 or more games. The lowest number on there was 9. And when I read that, when you posted that and I went and read it, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to lose my bet. I mean, that was the first thing I thought. There is no way that you get – it's just like when you watch the predictions for Sunday Night Football and you got the panel of six, or maybe Monday Night Football, and they got the panel of 7 or 8 that are making predictions. When they all predict the same thing, you need to run to the Caesars to your phone and bet on the money line on the other team because it's not happening. It never happens that way. So
yeah, and let me just recite that for you because I was talking to Bobby Hebert yesterday about this because he was talking about it on WWL last night. Ed Daniels was the only one that didn't pick them to win at least 10 games. He went 9-8. He was the closest one to the final record. Everyone else went 10 wins or more. So there was unbridled optimism. And we weren't alone. I mean, Peter King picked the Saints to go to the Super Bowl. And Peter King is not prone to,
hyperbole.
You're right. He's just not going to do that. So there was a lot of expectations. The Saints internally thought they were going to be one of the best teams in the NFC. That's why they acted the way they did in the offseason with their moves. They felt like this roster was really good. So it was a disappointing season. No way around it. But winning 4 to end the season certainly makes you feel better about things. And I think more importantly, Jim, it helps Dennis Allen with the locker room. I mean, now there's a little more buy-in. Things were looking a little shaky there after that Bucks game.
And I think win or lose, that I think they feel differently about themselves than they felt after that Tampa game.
Yeah, but Dennis Allen needed to win this.
I agree. And I will say this about Dennis Allen. And I know you said behind the scenes he does have a little bit more emotion and he doesn't always show it on the field, but I've been glad to see him pumping his fist and getting a little excited about it. It makes me feel a little bit differently about him. I said many weeks. I've not necessarily been in his corner. In fact, I haven't been in his corner. Let's be frank. I've not been in his corner for a lot of the season. That being said, I was never asking for him to be fired. I know a lot of Saints fans were, and I think it's because I know what it's like to be fired because I've been fired a lot in the last decade or so. They keep bringing me back. I'm like a cockroach. I don't know what it is, but so I don't wish being fired on anyone. And it's hard to judge what a coach can do after one season. So to me, it would have to be a complete and absolute atrociousness for a coach to be fired, like Nathaniel Hackett deserved to be fired. I mean, there's no other way around
Yeah, it's not like that. And I think –
Not at all. Not at all.
I don't think so. And I think the way they played the last few weeks is a positive sign.
I agree with that.
Lewis and Gail Benson.
But they still need to make significant changes. I think, first of all, and we kind of talked about this, Pete Carmichael, they need to find either another place for him on this coaching staff or he needs to go. And he didn't want this job at all. He didn't want this job in the first place.
Would not surprise me if Pete looked for a fresh start wherever Sean Payton lands. That wouldn't surprise me at all.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I don't know that there's anything that's going to say that Sean Payton's going to be coaching next year.
I don't think so either. I mean, now, look, if Miami loses this week and that owner –
that would be an interesting situation. That has changed in a hurry.
He's already expressed interest in Sean Payton. We know that.
Yeah, that would be an interesting situation. Now I can't see them jumping ship after one season, but after the start they had. But when you lose 5 games in a row, and if they lose to the Jets, finish on a 6-game losing streak, that's really hard to take.
I think they're starting Skylar Thompson, right?
They are starting Skylar Thompson, although I think Miami wins that game. So, but anyway, my prediction is I think the Saints lose 20-17, and they lose it. Eddie Pinheiro is 6 for 6 in his career against the Saints. I think he's going to go 9 for 9, and I think the Panthers are going to win in a last-second field goal. Let's call it 23-20 or somewhere along those lines. I actually think it's going to go under, so I think that's a little high. We'll come up with a score later, but that's what I think is going to happen. Or maybe we'll go 8 for 8. It'll be 20-17, but I think Eddie Pinheiro is going to kick a last-second field goal. The Saints lose, and again, all those 7.5 win ticket holders are going to be holding their ticket. Although I got a ticket on the Carolina over, so I guess I can't lose one way or the other. I'm going to break even on that. All right, moving on. I do want to talk, and I don't have a screen slide for it, so we're going to have to just keep this slide up for now. But I do want to briefly talk about Georgia and TCU, and I got a little clip to show you in just a moment, Dunk, but I want to get your thoughts on the game first. To me, this is an incredible for TCU to make it this far, I'm going to be completely open and honest. I don't feel any differently than I felt about them before, but I don't think they deserve to be in the playoff. I know 85% of the college football viewers out there disagree with me, and that's okay. They didn't deserve to be in the playoff. I still think they don't deserve. I still think Alabama deserves to be in the playoff.
What does it take with you? I mean, like they have to win the game. They won the game on the field. They beat Michigan. Come on.
So what? They beat Michigan. Harbaugh is a choke artist.
I don't know, but I'm the exact opposite of you.
I know you are. I know it's okay.
I wrote my column this week about perception and myth of college football, and Tulane detonated that myth. No one thought Tulane could.
That's different.
Play with Southern Cal. Nobody did. They line up. Even if they would have
lost, makers did.
That's right. They knew, and college football coaches knew. They knew. But that's the problem with the highest level of college football right now, and it's been this way for decades. Is it's built on computer formulas, eyeball tests, all that bullshit. Instead of like letting people play. They say, well, I don't think Tulane's on the same level as Southern Cal. What about these levels we hear about all the time, right? They can't play at the SEC level. I mean, give me a break. That's just some myth that's been put out there. Now, Georgia might drub TCU. I don't think there's any doubt. They probably will, but they also drub a lot of SEC teams, a lot of them. So it's
not Alabama.
No, but they drub a lot of other teams in the SEC that's supposedly on a different level. That's my point. No one thought Tulane could play with Southern Cal, and they lined up. If they would have lost the game, they still showed they can compete with them. It's a competitive game. People act like there's these different levels. It's become this myth, and even Kansas played Arkansas, and it was like 55-53. They played a competitive game. It's Florida got crushed by whoever they played. There's a bunch of perception problems, and that's why I'm so glad they're finally expanding the 12-team playoff. I wish they'd go to 16 or 24 and let us have let
us have the same thing we're going to have this week. Georgia beating the crap out of somebody.
I know.
If we had a 16-team playoff, it would be Georgia beating the crap out of somebody.
No, we've gotten to this point. We've got to level it back out with more teams, and then what that does is it gives the TCUs and the Tulane. Now recruits now look at Tulane differently.
I don't disagree with that at all.
Tulane and go, I'm not going there. They're not ever going to be able to. Now you watch them line up and beat Southern Cal. You're like, wow. I mean, I might consider going. In the past, you never even got a chance to see them play the game. If you have a 4-team playoff, teams are being legislated out before they even ever have a chance to compete.
I would have rather Tulane in that game than TCU, and I agree. Now look, if they had not lost to Southern Miss, maybe they would have been in there. I don't know.
What I'm getting at is over time, that will level itself out to where it's not. We've gotten to this point where Georgia and Alabama are these superpowers, and nobody can beat them because we've allowed this system to be in place where we've created this mythological, there are different levels. And look, right now, Georgia is on a different level than everybody.
That's true.
That's just the way it is. But eventually, if you allow them to keep playing, other recruits are going to say, you know what, I might go there. Like a Tulane recruit might now go to Tulane instead of Southern Cal. Maybe. I'm not saying they will, but over time, when you start seeing, they can compete, it'll level itself out over time. It's gotten to this point because in the past, why would you ever go somewhere that's not going to be able to compete for a national title? It's like a legislated built-in country club that the other schools could be a part of. Now we're opening it up, and the country club will have more members, and that's my point.
I'm not saying where we're going isn't a better place, but you can't say. I mean, to me, college football isn't any different. I mean, it's different with the transfer portal and the NILs and all that sorts of things. That's obviously different. But in the grand scheme of things, college football isn't any different today than it was in 1950. There are levels. There's Georgia. There's Alabama. I mean, really, to me, there's Georgia and there's everybody else. That's who it is right now. But I mean, in the past,
Right,
you
but
go in the
those
past,
change.
and kids
Georgia wasn't there 5 years ago. I mean, things change. Who's to say that Oregon
changed because of Kirby Smith, Kirby Smart.
I mean, that's what I mean. But that's why we have to let it be competitive. You can't just say.
I'm not disagreeing with that part of it.
You can't just say, "Oh, you're not good enough." I mean, the eyeball test kills me. That's the thing that kills me. We're judging whether if you'd ask 95% of America if Southern Cal and Tulane, who was going, I mean, Southern Cal, everybody thought Southern Cal.
You're actually incorrect on that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because there was a lot of betting on Tulane. I'm telling you right now.
Well, betting's one thing.
Well, I mean, but betting.
The general fan would say they don't pass out. They don't.
I think there are a lot of general fans betting now.
I know there are, but I'm just saying there are way more people out there. The casual fan would say they can't play with Southern Cal.
Well,
five-star recruits.
I will tell you this. I know I'm in the vast minority, but TCU, I'm sorry. You lose to Kansas State and you don't belong in the national champion, and you don't belong in the national championship.
Well, I mean, everybody has one game where they, don't play well. They don't come to play. I don't think.
Okay, but if you want to take resumes, there's teams to me. Why is it that TCU is up there that far?
This is my point. This is exactly my point.
I'd rather see, and I'm not just saying this. I'd rather see
12 or 16-team playoffs. We decided on the field. Then you can see.
I don't disagree. It's going to be.
That's my point. But getting to the point of this game, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I think Georgia's going to crush them, and I think they're going to crush them. One, because I think they're better, but two, I just think everything went TCU's way in that Michigan game. They got 2 pick sixes. And Michigan fumbled on the 1-yard line. That's basically 21 points. That's not going to happen this week. We're going to regress to the mean. Georgia survived a scare. Nobody thought Georgia was going to lose to Ohio State, right? I mean, they almost did. So you have to play the game.
That's not true.
Play the games.
Okay. I'm not calling myself some great prognosticator, okay, because actually I'm not great in college football. Now, I'm good when it comes to the bigger games and the teams that I can analyze and know something about, I'm better with those. So that's why when I pick the Georgias of the world or go through and the teams that I've seen more often, and why I did pretty well picking LSU games, because I've seen them more. I got to be honest, on Saturday, I don't spend all day Saturday watching college football like I do all day Sunday watching the NFL because, frankly, I need to have some family time. I mean, it's the only day really that I can spend with my family. So I do watch LSU because I have to and want to. And then usually that means it leads to me watching the bigger games, and I've seen Georgia more than I've seen other teams. That being said, this is a game, if you want to bet on it, and I'm not telling you to go bet on it, do whatever. I'm not advocating that you go bet on it, but if you want free money, go bet on Georgia minus 12.5. This is the closest thing to free money that you're ever going to get because this is going to be ugly. And if I'm wrong, look, if I'm wrong, I'll come back and show you that they're going to, we're going to show a little clip. In fact, let's show it right now. We had a little thing, Duncan. You'll appreciate this because if Georgia doesn't cover, I'm going to have a lot of egg on my face or paint or something because I made a bet on Bayou Bets yesterday. We had a little fun with it. Here's the clip. Georgia is going to wipe the floor. Zoe, cut this out. Bring this back. Georgia is going to make TCU. You want to talk about, and then y'all will say, when they win by 30, you'll still say, well, TCU did deserve to be in there because they're a better resume. Screw resumes.
Screw resume. Why are you even playing the games if you want to screw the resumes? Why are we even playing the games? They did play the game.
One team
Georgia
playing the SEC, the other one playing the Big 12.
So they're not allowed to get in because of the conference?
Are we really going to do this over again?
Are we? It sounds like you want to.
Well, you flop the volleyball up. I'm going to hit it back down. Whether you dig it out is up to you. I have no idea whether it's going to happen or not. But
points.
I mean, I hope Aunt Mabel keeps pounding TCU over and over and over again. Make this line. I'm not going to bet this until
Gabe, you're on the dog.
You know what's the best part?
I love TCU in this spot with 12.5.
No.
I love them 12.5.
The lines makers are so scared to drop this any lower, even though if it were anybody else, this line would be it'd be like 10.5 by now because it's getting pounded on TCU. I mean, absolutely pounded. but they're too scared to drop it any further because the lines makers know that Georgia's going to beat the ever-loving hell out of them.
Look, TCU and
yeah,
again,
you want to bank a bet? What would you like? Hold on. What kind of bet can we do on this show?
Here we go.
No, I'm not talking about po' boy. We got to do something to where one of us looks like a dumbass on this show, okay? And because I know it's going to be you that looks like a dumbass. So let's figure out something right now. And 12.5.
I have dunce caps.
I've got minus something. It's got to be something better than dunce cap. It's got to be something better than Dattitude stripes. It's got to be something good. All right.
Can we buy him a Georgia mascot head?
A Georgia mascot head. I mean, you guys buy a Georgia mascot head.
The face paint of the mascot poorly painted on. I'll
tell you what. There you go. There's one. If TCU covers, I will get my 7-year-old daughter to paint TCU colors on my face and come on here. Now, I know you don't have a daughter,
Will you be the psychedelic frog, please?
Yeah, look, I'll make it even so it's got some. I know TCU doesn't have green in them, but I'll put a little green in there. So, like, it's got Dattitude stripes in there, too.
I know really what I'm rooting for now. Go Frogs.
So, Gabe, what are you got somebody that can paint your face red and black?
Yeah, I could do that.
Are you in?
Yeah, I'm in.
All right,
let's get it.
There we go.
It's official.
I like it.
I'm calling someone else a dumbass, but yet I wore green, and my backdrop, looked like I got Dattitude plaid stripes on me. So
I like it though. I like the bet. I like both guys. You and was Zoe? Is that?
No, that was Gabe. That was
Gabe. Are you
Zoe's?
Gabe? I like that you all both were staunch in your belief. That's the way it should be.
Yeah, well, you and I get staunch in our belief. We're usually on the same side of things. We don't usually really butt heads too often, but
I'm with you on Georgia winning big in this one. I think they're going to wear them down. I don't necessarily think it's going to start out, just a seal clubbing, but I think Georgia's physicality, and I also think
a frog dropping.
Well, TCU just played a very physical game, and I just think with the one thing that's happened, and again, I don't want to get back into my stump on this level on the playing field, but what's happened is with 85 scholarships, I mean the excess in college football, these superpowers just have so much greater depth, and they just wear you down. Games are competitive at halftime, and then the physicality, the depth, the rotations, and I think they'll just wear TCU down. But look, the one thing I would be concerned about is just you got a 20-point lead and Georgia's won a national title.
Slipping in the back door.
Yeah, the backdoor cover, just because they're going to be. I
absolutely think that's a possibility.
That's the concern I would have. But I do think, TCU, the clock's going to strike midnight.
I think Georgia's defense is going to play a lot better in this game.
I do too.
I know they haven't played all that well lately. I said before the Ohio State game that was not a good matchup for them. In fact, I said back in October, when it goes down the stretch, to me, the only team that had a chance to beat Georgia, and you can go, it's been documented. You can go back and look at it. I said the only team that could beat Georgia was Ohio State because it's just not a good matchup for them. I thought C.J. Stroud presented a ton of problems. Although that Ohio State was well coached and could run the ball and do all the things that they did, and it did present a problem. And another difference, Dunk, is that TCU had a month to prepare for Michigan. They got a little over a week to prepare for Georgia. That's a whole different ball game, and I don't think Kirby Smart needs much more than a week to prepare for TCU. They're going to be ready to play.
I just feel like whenever you have a game like TCU had where things go your way, look, I know they made the plays, so
right,
but Michigan fumbling on the 1-yard line, that's just
they got lucky.
Yeah, so when that tends to even out, this reminds me a lot of NCAA tournament. One of my favorite strategies in betting NCAA tournament games is when you have a high seed that survives their scare, right, by the lower seed. I love betting them the next week.
So do I.
They got it out of the way. They're more comfortable. They play loose. And I think that's what's going to happen with Georgia. They survived their scare. And now they're just going to come out. And then TCU, on the other hand, I mean, everything went their way. It's not going to happen.
I agree wholeheartedly.
So both
you always bet that.
I think play into a Georgia blowout in my mind.
Well, not only that, you usually get a little bit more value as well because the lines makers and the bettors back off of a team that got a big scare against a team they shouldn't have got. A Duke playing a Richmond or something in the second round, getting a big scare. Then they come back and blow the next team out by 20. I love that. I think that's a great strategy. And also betting on LSU against Kentucky is usually a pretty good strategy because they usually cover, and they did again this week.
Right? There's like a 10-point line there. Kentucky's not very good this year.
They're not.
I mean, that's pretty evident, and I don't understand.
Ishwe Beekwe, what the heck's that guy's name? That guy's
Oscar Shwebe.
Whatever his name is, that dude's pretty
They didn't
good.
have him. They would be maybe a 500 team.
I'm sorry, I've never liked John Calipari.
Here's my other betting angle, and I've done this before for our Bets NOLA page. In college basketball, it's playing out right now, so it might be a little too late. But in the first games of college basketball, in the conference games, always just take the home teams, because normally these big power conferences, SEC, Big Ten, they've stuffed their pre-conference schedules with cupcakes and basically home games. They have not played very many true road games. And all of a sudden they get on the road and it's a hostile environment. It's a totally different situation. And more often than not, that'll be a winning strategy for you. And it's not going to be 100%. LSU covered their first big road game against Kentucky, but more often than not, you see that team go on the road for the first time and play in a whole different environment, and it goes for the home team.
I am just now getting into college basketball. In fact, last night was the first – I would say it's the first game that I really watched that didn't have anything to do with our locals here. I watched the Purdue-Ohio State game last night. Great game, by the way.
Yeah, it was an awesome game.
Purdue found a way to come back. Now, part of it was because it was our daily best bet of the day, Purdue, the money line. And when the kid from Ohio State hit the three with about, 16 seconds left, I thought it was hosed. But Purdue comes back and wins the game. So
those games are great, too, like great atmosphere, environment. I mean,
no doubt.
My favorite thing to cover in all of sports is a great conference like college basketball game. It's electric. The fans are right up on the court. It feels like every possession matters. I mean, it's such a different type of game than, say, an NBA game. You go to an NBA game, it just feels like there's no intensity to a lot of the action. It's incredible athleticism and obviously execution at a high level, much higher level, but the intensity is just not equal to a great college game.
Well, I've been to a few Final Fours, and to me, it's one of the greatest spectacles in sports. Last year's Final Four was super fun. I enjoyed the heck out of it. I'm not, I didn't necessarily win a bunch of money when Kansas won, but it was still fun nonetheless. And to see the emotion of the Danny Mannings of the world, and Paul Pierce was down there as well, and these guys they really care. I mean, so, these millionaires are down there, and they're like, a couple of them were crying like babies down there. It was pretty cool.
I love, like, college basketball also, and this is true of any really basketball, but, like, the swings, right? Like, people go on runs. Like that North Carolina-Kansas final. I mean, North Carolina was unstoppable in the first half. And then you saw the momentum turn, right? And everything started going Kansas's way. And you could just feel it in the building, and you can see it in the body language of the players. And if you're on the court, trying to reverse that is so hard. Somebody's got to step up and make a big basket. It's incredible the mindset that some of these players have to overcome those things.
No doubt about it. And so, look, we're transitioning. This is, and I know a lot of people don't necessarily want to hear about our college basketball talk. As we go forward, Dunk's going to stay with me. We're gonna go live at least through the playoffs. Who knows? Maybe we'll go longer. We'll talk about it, or maybe it'll be an occasional thing after football is over. But we're going to stay live throughout the playoffs. We're going to be talking about NFL, but we're also going to be talking about the Pelicans. We're going to be talking about some college basketball here and there. We're talking about a lot of things. So
maybe a Kentucky Derby, man.
Kentucky Derby, first weekend in May, first Saturday in May.
Derby and be in March.
We'll definitely be talking about some horse racing. So all sorts of things coming up on the Dattitude podcast. We're glad you're listening. And every Friday, 9:15 a.m., you're welcome to give your comments and questions here on any of our NOLA.com or bet.NOLA.com platforms. If you're watching on Twitter, you're going to have to either email me at jderry@theadvocate.com or send me a notification on @Jim Derry Jr. I'll be checking as we go along. Duncan, I want to wrap up the show. Last couple minutes. I don't want to spend a lot of time. We're going to transition to talking a lot more about the Pelicans going forward. But, they're in a situation. Zion Williamson is hurt again. It's becoming – I don't want this to become like an AD situation. But I guess we're going to go forward, and the kid's never going to play more than 65 games in a season. I mean, I think that's what we're going to have to look for.
Well, I think it's troubling when Brandon Ingram's the same way. Your other linchpin. I know he missed – Ingram missed 25 games last year. He's approaching that already.
Exactly. He's going to miss at least that this year.
Yeah. So to me, that's the troubling thing is the team hasn't been able to play together. He's probably going to sit through, I think, the All-Star break, which is probably smart. Those hamstring injuries are tough. What I'm concerned about is just his conditioning. I know they got a great training staff out there, but he's a big guy. He's had weight issues in the past, and when you get a hamstring injury, it really limits what you can do conditioning-wise, cardio-wise. I'm sure they've got some ways they can keep him in shape, but to me, that's a troubling situation. I'm sure when he comes back, it's going to be on a kind of a limited basis. They got to get healthy after the All-Star break and go on a run. We see the potential of this team. I mean, to me, the depth is so much better than it's been in the past, so they can withstand some of this. But to truly be a contender for like a title or maybe getting to the NBA Finals, they got to have all their weapons available.
I agree, and they get a big win over the Rockets. They had a huge first quarter lead. They nearly let it slip away, to be honest. So it's going to be interesting to see how they play. I think Brandon Ingram will be back soon, but still, they're about to go through a tough stretch here, playing the hot Brooklyn Nets tonight at the Smoothie King Center. And then they got a back-to-back. You're talking about playing Luka Doncic on the road in the second half of a back-to-back. That's no gift at all. And then you can turn around and you go on the road and play again on Monday. So you got 3 games before the national championship game is over. Nets, Mavericks, Wizards. Not an easy stretch. We'll see how they get through it.
I think you want to win 2 of those 3.
No question.
Feel good about yourself. You win 2 of those 3.
And I think tonight is a key game. I think if they can find a way to win, my cohorts at Bayou Bets, the ones that want my face painted, they think the Pels are going to play well and win tonight. I don't. I don't think this is a good matchup for them at all. I think the Nets are 4-point favorites or something like that. I'd actually take the Nets.
I'll tell you what, it'd be good theater watching Herb Jones on Kevin
KD.
That'll be a fun matchup.
I don't disagree with that at all. All right, any final thoughts, Dunk? Saints, Panthers, obviously, last game of the season. It's going to be interesting to see what the Dome is like on Sunday. I have decided to not go. I could have gone this weekend. I got so much going on. The chance to take a Sunday off was too much to pass up because I know we're going to be doing a lot with the national championship game. Final thoughts as we go off this morning.
I think it'll be important for the Saints to play well and finish the season on a high note. I think it's going to be a busy offseason, and I think it's going to start right away. I don't think this is going to be a quiet offseason at all. I think we're going to see some coaching changes, and it'll be interesting to see the Sean Payton sweepstake, how that plays out over the next few weeks, because that will bear, on the Saints' fortunes, I think, this offseason. If they can get some draft capital in return for him, if it happens, I think that's a big thing to watch.
I agree wholeheartedly, and I agree that it's not going to take a lot of time. I think that you're going to see some changes pretty quickly.
I'll say this real quick, just before I remember this. Sean Payton actually has a rooting interest, in this title game. His son, Connor, is on the TCU football staff.
I did not know that.
Yeah, his son, Connor, is in the personnel department. This is how big college football's gotten now. They have personnel departments that evaluate the transfer portal, things like that, and that's what Connor does. He's eventually going to go into that in the NFL, but he's a senior at TCU, got brought on when Gary Patterson was a coach, and he works there. So, like, Peyton and has got a suite at the game. He was at the game when they beat Michigan, as basically Connor, all of his family and friends there. So it's a big deal for the Peyton family.
Okay, well, we will be looking for that, and I'm also, I think as we go along, Dunk, we're going to have some try to get some guests on once we get past football season, go back to where we were having some really good guests. We had Mickey Loomis on in the offseason. I had Jim Mora on. I had Ricky Jackson came on. Dale Brown was on the show. So I think and it's hard to think of, the life of a sports writer during football season when you have an NFL team in town. You just go every Monday's the same, every Tuesday's the same, every Wednesday's. I mean,
yep,
it is what it is, and it's like I said, and I'll say this as long as I'm doing this job. You go to sleep it's somewhere in the middle of August, and you wake up and it's January, and it's happened again. I mean, you just don't
I
want
say it to myself every year as I'm watching the opening kickoff of the Saints opener. I'm in the press box, and I'm like, well, I'm going to wake up, and it's going to be January. I mean, it happens, goes by so fast, those 18 weeks.
It really does.
It's amazing.
I mean, you think it goes fast as a fan, and you watch as a fan, and you look forward to every week. It's just, and I can't imagine well, players are young, but I mean, like for their coaching staff, they do it 24 hours a day. Look, we work a lot during football season. I mean, we try to make up for it as the year goes along. I don't think we ever even it out, and it's okay. I'm not saying, oh, woe is me, because I write about sports and talk about sports for a living. So there's no, oh, woe is me. But I think Duncan and I both work a little bit, probably more than 40 hours a week during football season. And it's okay. We live, sleep, and eat it. Then we have fun with it. And we're going to continue to have fun with it, even when the Saints are over. Panthers at Saints on Sunday. The season is over for the Saints, but it's not over for us, because we're going to talk about the playoffs as we go along, make predictions as we've been doing, have a little bit of fun with it, keep talking about the Pels. Maybe we'll get in a little bit more college basketball. Maybe Duncan will share some insights on horse racing. There will be other things mixed in, but we will be doing our live show on Fridays until we tell you we're not. So join us every Friday at 9:15. Duncan and I, it's been a lot of fun. I will see you next week, partner.
Take care, buddy. Have a good weekend.
All right, everybody, you guys, I'll do the same. And remember, you can catch my monologue and my picks with Uncle Big Nick coming up shortly on wherever you get your podcast. Go and find it, Apple, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, whatever works for you. And you can hear it all. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next Friday.